We're talking with Todd Starnes from Fox News and ToddStarnes.com, who's got a new book out, Dispatches from Bitter America. And, well, you're kind of at the right place here, Todd.
Oh, look, I'm surrounded by so many bitter people. It's just amazing. I feel like we all need a therapy session, group therapy.
How many people have you seen clinging to things around here, by the way?
Look, I'm just so glad the occupiers aren't around. Sadly, I had brought a caseload of Febreze here to hand out to the occupiers because, you know, they're a bit ripe these days, having to live out in the tents for the past several months. But I'm excited about this book. It's about my experiences traveling with President Obama back in the 2008 presidential campaign, and the statement he made about people who cling to their guns and religion being bitter Americans. And I got to thinking about it for a second. I'm a gun-toting, chicken-eating son of a Baptist, and I don't seem all that bitter. So if I'm not all that bitter, I got to think, well, wait a second, what about everybody else? So I went on this journey across America, and I wanted to find out if, in fact, people who cling to the traditional values that have made this the most exceptional country on the earth, if they really were, in fact, bitter. And that's what this book is all about.
It's interesting it's coming up now. First off, you're at CPAC, where, I mean, I've been coming to CPAC for 7-8 years now. Most of the time, this is a very positive event. People are very happy to be here. They're very enthused about the conservative movement. I don't see any evidence of bitterness here. I do see evidence of some anger, though, over Obama's mandate on health care.
You are absolutely right. And that's what this book actually is about. It's a satire on the Obama administration. We talk about what would happen if some of the policies they wanted to implement really were implemented. For example, one of President Obama's czars wanted to give animals the same rights as human beings, so to give them the right to sue people. So as a lover of chicken from the Deep South, where I hail from Memphis, Tennessee, I had an imaginary story in my book that I was put on trial for the mass genocide of chickens based on the Obama administration's new policies. So, so we kind of get into the snarky realm a little bit. But we also talk about the serious issues too, and I predicted in this book, which was written last year, just came out this week, I predicted this administration was declaring a war on Christianity. And we documented it in Dispatches from Bitter America. We lay it out there, and sure enough, look at what's happening now. This administration has declared all-out war on people of faith. It's just absolutely reprehensible to think what this administration is doing. And get this, just think about this for a second, Ed. Compare how they treat Christians to how they treat those unwashed, disease-riddled occupiers who are holed up in public parks across this country. It's absolutely outrageous.
Especially McPherson Park, which is federal land. So the Obama administration actually has jurisdiction over what's going on. This is right here in Washington, D.C. For those who are not immersed in the D.C. culture, McPherson Park is administered by the National Park Service.
God bless these occupiers. God bless these people is what Nancy Pelosi said. The president sympathizes with these people, and yet at the same time, he turns his back, thumbs his nose at people of the Christian faith. It is absolutely outrageous. And so we lay it all out there in this book, and it's really interesting because I actually live now among the indigenous liberal population of Brooklyn. And my book has been banned in 5 bookstores in the Brooklyn area. And what my publisher sent me one of the emails, and they said, my book does not promote tolerance and diversity, so it won't be on the bookshelves of some of the more liberal establishment and enlightened bookstores.
No, wait a minute. It doesn't promote tolerance and diversity. You're actually arguing for tolerance and diversity in this book.
And I think that's chapter 22 in my book about how those who preach tolerance are in fact the least tolerant of all.
Yeah, I mean, this is a clear case of projection going on here, and I mean the comment that sparked the title of your book, the bitter clinging, guns and religion remark from Barack Obama, was a classic example of a lack of tolerance and also a lack of political sense. But
well, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. And on top of that, I've discovered the reason why people are clinging to their guns and religion is they're afraid the federal government's going to take them away.
As we are seeing this week and last week with the HHS mandate.
We certainly are, and people are very concerned in this country about the direction, about the focus, this idea that we're banishing God from the marketplace of ideas, especially in the military, where just last week I did a story at ToddStarnes.com about the Air Force removing God from a logo because one single atheist complained. This is where we're at in this country, where Bibles were banned at Walter Reed Army Medical Center by this administration, where people were not allowed to deliver Christian prayers at National Cemetery in Houston because of the policies of this administration. And yes, they backtrack and they say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't mean it. But you know what? That doesn't fly at the end of the day, especially when you look at the volume of attacks this administration has levied against individuals of faith.
Well, it's sending a message, isn't it? I mean, even if you have to backtrack from it later on, which apparently the Obama administration will later on today on the HHS mandate, at least to some extent, it's still sending a message. It's a message of hostility and intolerance, is it not?
It is, and the idea that they're going to adjust it or compromise, they need to. I'm not sure that's going to work at this point. I suspect that the Catholics, now you have evangelicals, Southern Baptist, Richard Land, who's president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the nation's largest Protestant denomination, saying, "Are you prepared to go to jail?" Because he said he is. I mean, these are not the fundamentalist, wacko folks out there. These are mainline evangelical Christians. These are your next door neighbors, and they're preparing to march in the streets. I'm not sure President Obama wants 10 million people marching in Washington D.C.
No,
this summer.
The leader of the largest Hispanic evangelical group, which represents I think something like 18 million Hispanics, came out and said basically the same thing. And these are not Catholics; these are Hispanic evangelicals saying we're outraged by this. And people who were supporting Obama 3 years ago, 4 years ago, are changing their minds.
I got an email yesterday from Rick Warren, who's pastor at Saddleback Church, who hosted President Obama. Remember, they had a great abortion debate. And by the way, that was an amazing moment because Joe Biden said that life begins at conception. And what did Barack Obama say? He goes, "That's above my pay grade."
Yes.
So just think about this for a second. Let's take the president at his word. He doesn't know when life begins. So, Mr. President, wouldn't you want to err on the side of caution in that instance? Just curious. But Rick Warren, who's not one of these march in the streets kind of a guy, sent me an email yesterday saying that you have to be prepared to go to jail to defend your faith. He goes, "I'm ready. Are you?" I mean, that's
powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. All right, so what else is in the book? What other great nuggets can you share with us that's in the book?
Well, we look at the whole culture and what's happening, and I really base a lot of my experiences living among the indigenous liberals of Brooklyn, where, I got off on the wrong foot. We had a block party. I bought a caseload of Rush Limbaugh's 2FIT to give out to the neighbors. Nobody talks to me now. But the people in New York, they seem to think that the country ends at the Hudson River. There's nothing west of the Hudson River. And ultimately, in my travels, I discovered that people who live in Manchester, New Hampshire have much more in common with folks in, say, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, than they do with folks in Boston. And that ultimately the anomalies in the country are the people who live in the large cities. That most of us do share this common sense of values: God, family, country. These are the things that make us strong. On my way over here this morning, I was stuck in traffic, and this was my morning commentary I did. So I got out my microphone and I interviewed my taxi cab driver. Yusim is his name. He came here, immigrant from Somalia or Ethiopia. And he told me, he says, "This Obama, he's no good." He says, "He's killing me." He says, "I used to work 9 hours a day in the taxi cab." He goes, "Now I got to work 12, 13 hours just to make ends meet to feed his family of 4. And I said, "Well, who are you going to vote for?" He goes, "I'm not voting for Obama." He goes, "I learned my mistake. I learned from my mistakes." These are regular folks here that are just trying to live the American dream, that want to do right. They came here legally, and they're hurting under this administration.
The name of the book is Dispatches from Bitter America. Todd Starnes, ToddStarnes.com. You can find it on Amazon and your fine bookstores everywhere except Brooklyn. And you can find it any place. You can find it any place where actual tolerance takes place. Todd Starnes, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed.